lived in America for a couple of years, came back as a teenager. I serve in the IDF's infantry and in a division called Golani, which is Israel's first infantry, the chief infantry division. I fought two tours in Gaza right now. I'm currently on a break, and yeah, that's it. Uh, Happy to be here.
Sure. Uh, Ufman, are you there? Well, since Ufman isn't here right now, I would like to ask you longer.
I'm here,
Or
but I was grabbing
okay,
some coffee.
sure. Okay. Just let. All right. I guess we'll just wait for Ufman, but I guess I'll ask one too longer. What is your perspective? Like, what is your perspective on the current situation in Gaza right now? If you don't mind us asking. So,
Yeah, no problem. Well, what happened essentially after some rounds of conflicts was on 7th of October this year, last year. Hamas, a terrorist organization, made a large cross-border attack and targeting Israeli civilians in the border towns and some of the bases there. There were around 1,400 people killed, a lot injured, a lot displaced, around 120, 100 to 150 kidnapped. And so what happened was essentially it sparked a very large war, something that really we haven't had the scale of in almost ever, and nothing of the scale has ever happened in Israel. And so this war, after some delays and some attempted, ceasefire to bring back some of the hostages, we're continuing to fight and capture the Gaza Strip. And what's going to be there long term isn't really clear, but currently it's held by Israel. The Gazans have evacuated to the south. Fighting is going relatively well, progressing street by street, and making sure that it's safe for us to live in southern Israel and where my family is and where my friends live. And it's a long difficult war and a lot of human suffering, but we can't ignore our hostages and our civilians that have suffered, and what has to be done has to be done. And so we've entered, it's kind of a crawl. Urban warfare is very difficult and it takes a long time to get done, but we're getting it done. It's being done in a good manner. And yeah, that's it.
okay. So, Ufman, tell us who you are. Since we got to skip you, forgive me, brother. We didn't get you the time you needed. So go ahead. The floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Othman. I'm a journalist. I'm trying to help my people with spreading the truth, covering the true stories, not neglecting any party of this conflict. This conflict has been neglected by the Western media, only covering up for one party, making that party look bad in some matter, uh, demonetizing that party's army, doing this, doing that, just to cover up for that party, and also harming that party reputation. I'm talking about the IDF in like the Western media eyes doesn't look like the same as in there, and to make sure that it's not what the Western media is calling that army and doing about the army reputation. I'm here with my fellow longer O to sit here and talk about the situation between a Palestinian and an Israeli. So
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. I've written history before and written opinion pieces and stuff of that nature. We're all people here. Everybody's able to
Mhm.
talk and agree about, what common ground there is, and that's very important for all sides to do.
Yeah. Suppose
Yeah. So what do you write about, Usman?
I don't do articles.
Okay.
I'm not interested in articles. I do reports for my own sake. I read books, critique books from now and then, and I do some video montage. I record some
Hmm,
reports of mine, and yeah, and I help people. I'm back of the screen. I'm not in front of the lens most of the time.
for sure, for sure.
Safaz, is there any question you wanna
No, no.
ask or
Yeah, yeah.
anything you wanna add?
Thought you were. I'm wondering what your research is about, though. Is it about, The
Everything. Economics about in the West Bank, how the resources in the West Bank get stolen day by day by those illegal settlements done by illegal authorities, grooving in the West Bank, which is Palestine. Khan
Well,
al-Ahmar, for instance, Khan al-Ahmar when they want to destroy a school made by the UN to take it and add it to a settlement. So yeah,
well, Khan
for
al-Ahmar,
instance.
even in comparison to other Palestinian towns which have had questionable status in the past, Khan al-Ahmar is by far the most questionable of them. And it was built in specific after Israeli town was built there. But aside from this, the resources in the West Bank are pretty thin already. It's not really, what is there to steal even?
No, they're not.
Uh,
They're not really thin. To take instance for many cities where they have lots of crops before and after, no, they're not really thin. To be honest with you, water
Showing fairly
water was
thin.
never an issue. Water was never an issue in the West Bank. Now they're trying to make it an issue. It's still not an issue, but take it from 20 years from now, it's gonna be an issue in the West Bank.
Of course, it's an issue now. There's
It's not
huge.
a, it's not that big of an issue. Maybe the distribution of the pipelines and whatever is artifacted by some authorities, claiming that settlements do have the priority of consuming the water, as in a ratio to 3 to 1.
It's
So I don't think
Israeli water distillation. It's
no
our money.
Israeli water in the West Bank. Ooh, how did that end up? Why would they destroy those tanks up
This
in
is like
the?
extracting groundwater. 95% of Israel's water is distilled, and it's distilled with our money for our crops. And so it's understandable that our pipelines will deliver
Oh,
water
okay,
to Israeli
okay,
settlements built by Israeli
okay.
pipelines for Israeli purposes. No,
Where are the crops you're talking about? Where are they at? The crops?
what do
Let's
you mean?
talk about corn. Don't you like have corn crops in Israel?
Not a lot,
Okay, not why?
because the land here doesn't fit. It takes a lot of water. It's the same way that
Oh,
Egypt grows.
really?
What does Egypt grow
But
cotton when it
but
needs a lot of water?
but in like North and the West Bank, they have lots of cities that has like corn crops. Wheat, for instance, crop
Lentils,
corn.
I know.
They have broccoli. They have this. They have that. Why is it always like having a problem with the Israeli side? Although the Palestinian side is distributes to Jordan with with their like crops and goods.
Israel has crops that are grown as well.
Avocados, shawafa, broccoli, flour, spinach, lettuce, tomatoes, cucumber in the northern of the West Bank. There's not a problem of
We
that crop.
grow apples and cucumbers and everything you want in the Emek Yizra'el and the
Yeah,
Galil
but
as
it's
well.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
referring.
yeah. Grapes in Hebron, Khalil. So why is it always in the West Bank about the crops? What are the crops that are made by the Israelis? Netanya? Can't you can't
Well,
you can't have like lands there? What is it?
what do you mean?
Kfar Saba?
Not to be rude, I'm trying to understand
Wait,
what you're to.
No, no, but
wait.
I'm asking
Wait,
like
Othman.
about the
Yeah,
crops
just
because you said
Where
about
Israel
the
grows
crops.
crops? Most of her crops were near Gaza, and then there was a whole event
Mm,
there, and they grow there a lot.
mm,
For example,
okay. No, no, it took us from like
I don't mean to be
a
rude. I'm
point to
genuinely
a
trying to
point.
understand the point you're making
Hmm?
about crops. There is a lot of issues about agriculture and land distribution, and that I'm just trying to understand what point you're trying to make.
No, no, no. I'm just saying that it comes with the resources. Then we go to agriculture. Then it goes to distributing the goods,
For
transforming
sure,
the
yeah,
goods from the West Bank to the Jordan or the
definitely.
where. So
Israel
it comes
definitely
with
prioritizes.
so many problems to the ordinary citizen, Palestinian citizen, as a farmer, as a distributor of the goods, or even a
Yeah,
truck driver.
checkpoints do limit the ability of
Huh.
people to transfer goods, and that's how checkpoints are built for. And
Mm.
that's not, it's an issue, but that's not the reason they were built. The reason they were built is because unmonitored transportation caused a lot of terror attacks and intifadas and stuff of
Mm.
that nature.
What about
And
spas in Jericho? Are they like for terror attacks?
let's not play dumb about this. There was a casino in
No, no,
Jericho
no,
that
no,
was
no,
being
no, no.
continuously, and then
That
a
casino,
bunch of
no, no.
conflict
That
stopped.
casino was split between Arabs and the Jews. but it was morely like owned by the Arabs because the Jews can't own a casino.
Yeah, and people went there all the time, and my
I'm
father
talking.
my
I
uncle
didn't
also.
mention the casino. I didn't mention the casino. I talked about the spas by the Dead
Okay,
Sea in the West Bank. West Bank. So what about
I'm just
those? Are those like
example.
for terror attacks?
Obviously, it limits freedom of transportation. My uncle also served in Golani back when the base of Golani was also in the West
Wasn't
Bank,
asking about the Golani.
right?
Wasn't asking about the Golani. I was asking about the
I'm telling
spas
you,
in Jericho are there for like stopping terror attacks. My question was simple. You can answer it. You don't have to go to Golani, whatever.
before. That's my response.
Hmm?
What do you think we build checkpoints for?
Checkpoints in the West Bank for what? To make them have like harder life, to go more, to cover more kilometers. You can't pass from here. Turn. That happens. Betil, Betin, Derdibwan. You know when you get to when you want to go to the middle to Ramallah, for instance, they're the economic capital for the West Bank. You get so many entries and you get so many checkpoints. Turn from here, go to there, go to here. Come on, Kalandia, for instance.
The whole idea is to limit the transportation without Israel knowing about it because of how many terror attacks there were. In the past, there wasn't a
Attacks.
system, and there were so many terror attacks during the Intifadas targeting
Terror
both
attacks.
Israel in and outside of the West Bank that this
Mm-hmm.
needed to happen in some format. And if it
Mm-hmm.
limits,
So
economic freedom, that's an issue, but
by
that's a
calling
side
now the
effect.
Palestinian Authority's terror organization, we don't have like Hamas or something. We might have like Arin Sud or something in
A lot
in
of parts
Nablus,
of
but they are
the West Bank.
taking care of those special operations, going there, killing civilians in the middle of the day or in the night.
Are you saying there's no Hamas in Nablus?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying
There is.
also that you go in
There's
Nablus
Hamas
and
fighting.
kill Hamas. They're Arin Sud and Jihad Islami. You know that. You know those two.
Sure.
What is Hamas in the picture though? I don't see Hamas.
Well, Hamas is
Jihad
also present.
Islami.
Hamas is
Mm.
present in Jinn. Hamas is present in Khalil. Hamas is present in many other West Bank cities and smaller towns as well.
Okay, why don't you take them out like you
Or
do
Khartoum,
with
or
with
Betuma.
the
And so
mm,
when they hide in civilian populations and operate terror attacks and laboratories for various
laboratories?
explosive
Ooh,
devices and
laboratories.
weapons, how do
That's
you
scary.
expect them to respond?
Oh, like the laboratories that you found in Bitunia next to Ofra.
As someone who has physically found Hamas laboratories for creating rockets, I can tell that they do hide them within civilian populations in
Have you
Gaza.
seen?
And
Have you got them in the West Bank?
I've
I'm not talking
I've
about Gaza. I'm
found,
talking about the West Bank.
I've found their weapon stashes myself, and I found their rocket launching sites myself,
In
and
the
these
West
were
Bank. Was it in the West Bank?
this is in Gaza.
Well, whatever is in Gaza is in Gaza. We're talking about the West Bank here, buddy.
Sure. Do you think the organization is going to operate that differently in a place like
I
this?
don't care about Hamas. I don't give a fuck about Hamas, man. To hell with Hamas. Do I look like a Hamas supporter? Do I look like a Hamas supporter
Wait,
to you, buddy? I'm not.
Hoffman, don't curse. You know, still on
That's
Twitch.
fine.
No, no, no.
Remember?
Okay.
Yeah.
Nah,
I'm
yeah.
just telling you
I gotta
this.
respect Twitch.
If there is a weapons laboratory or a place that makes explosive devices in a civilian town operated by whichever terror organization is operating it,
In
which I
Gaza,
assume is a
not
bad
by the
thing.
Palestinian authorities, not by the checkpoints of Israel. You took us to another detour. Okay, another detour like a checkpoint.
About the
So
checkpoint. Do you want to
let's
talk
talk
about the
about
checkpoint?
Gaza. Let's talk about Gaza. No, no. I want to talk about Gaza now, since you keep mentioning Gaza. How was it
Sure.
like in Gaza? I never been to Gaza. Tour me.
Well, we were there, the civilians have already evacuated the place, and so it was
Mhm.
very, very easy.
Were
Place like a
you?
ghost.
Were they like having like those white flags?
No, we didn't see any civilians the entire time there.
No civilians. Okay. Was that your story or everyone's story?
That's both mine and almost everyone else's story. The only place that most
Not
people have found
true. Not
civilians
true. Not true.
was
You've
in
been
England.
shooting at civilians all since the war started. Not true. There's so many videos on Twitter and on YouTube. Even YouTube Shorts. There are videos. So I don't know about.
Well,
Maybe
that's news
that's
to
your
me.
experience.
Nobody in my
Okay.
division, nobody
It
in
wasn't
Golani,
there. No, no.
the
It
civilians
wasn't
said
everyone's
humanitarian rally.
story. No, it wasn't everyone's story. Okay, whatever. Keep on.
The only place that civilians have been found in the entire infantry was in Al Mughazi, where we helped them exit physically, around 20 civilians in a building,
Hmm.
found by people we personally know. And I can tell you that nobody got shot there. There's
Yeah,
just
because they're
nobody there.
civilians. They shouldn't be getting shot. Civilians.
For
I'm not
sure, I
saying.
agree with you.
Yeah. Civilians are civilians at the end of the day. Okay, yeah.
And I
Israeli,
fully agree.
Palestinian, whoever, they are civilians. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Nothing. It's good that they weren't harmed. But I'm telling you that it's very, very eerie being in a place that you can tell
Mm.
there were so many people and now there are none.
But
And
they're
then you
used
can
to
hear,
this. But they're
sure.
used to it in Gaza. Living in Gaza is like you getting used to this shit from now and
Yeah.
then.
And so the only thing that's left are the terrorists there. And they
Mm.
operate out of the tunnels. And so we're mostly hunting the tunnels and not really the terrorists themselves.
Have you been in a tunnel?
No, not physically.
Mm.
I've seen the openings, I've thrown grenades into them. I haven't physically
Mm.
entered a tunnel. And nobody
Would
nobody
you
really is limited
would
to
you
a tunnel.
rather if you were ordered to go to tunnel, would you rather be in the tunnel or not be in the tunnel?
I'd rather not be in a tunnel, and that's not
Why?
really my
Wouldn't
job.
you what isn't your job to kill the terrorists hiding in
Well,
the
my
tunnel?
job is, well, when you can kill the terrorists from outside the tunnel, there's no reason to enter it, no?
No, but no. In this scenario situation, you have to go in the tunnel. Would you go in the tunnel? This was my question.
Sure. Soldier follows orders, and if it's dangerous, then you follow the order.
Mhm. Wouldn't that leave you with trauma, PTSD, or anything if something happened in that tunnel? Because you don't
Something can
know.
happen.
It's a it's a dark tunnel.
Sure. Yeah, it's not exactly a fun place to be,
Yep, yep,
but
yep, yep, yep.
neither is the rest of the war.
No. Wars are not funny, but I'm talking about the because you told me about the casualties and the people that were injured by the Israeli army going out from the war, ending their tour, as you said. So, do you have like any friends with those injuries, head injuries or whatever? Because they said about the eyes injuries, they were like high in number.
Not higher than other wars. I
Mm.
have friends who got injured.
No, but I'm talking like a type of energy. They have like those injuries about the eye injuries are higher.
What do you mean? Physical eye injuries in the
Yeah,
eyes?
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Getting
think it's
hit
higher
in the
than the
eye
other
or
wars.
something. No, but
I think
this
the friend
was
who was
like
injured
most of the reports I
tired.
read. Mm-hmm. More to know from you. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think injuries are very different from war to war.
Mm.
At least, no. I tell you
But this
this,
is
that
like your first war, anyways.
as someone who's found tunnel openings in every place you can imagine, from inside mosques to inside children's rooms
Inside
and
mosque.
houses.
Okay, so how was it like? Did you like have to roll some
And I can
carpet,
tell you
or was it like a room?
that physically found these, okay? I've been
No,
there
no,
with my
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
can choose to
But
bring
I'm
your
telling
number.
you how would they like hide them? Because I've never been to Gaza, so I don't know anything.
I was in a mosque in El Mughazi, which is in the southern
Mm-hmm.
part of the central Gaza Strip near Nusayrat, if you know the area.
Mm-hmm.
And there we found a mosque, which was we had an intelligent suspicion of it having tunneling. And then we
Mm.
enter, and hiding under a stack of carpets, we find a tunnel opening, throw some grenades in, and then call in other more specialist units of the combat engineers to handle the tunnel from the inside. But
Mm-hmm.
you can tell he's hidden very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just in the middle of
You
civilian
had to
areas,
demolish the mosque at the end of the day. The mosque
lots
was
of
already hit.
colleges, and inside the room of, and I can tell you the exact name of this person if it interests you, in Sajaiya, we found in the room of someone's house of his children, we found explosive devices and grenades and improvised explosives. And this
That's
is how these people
I've
operate. They
seen
hide
this
in
on the news like 3, 4 times.
I'm
There
sure
are
this is not
people
new.
by the end of the day, those freedom
Well,
fighters, whatever you want to call them, they are people. They have wives, they have kids. Yeah, and
yeah.
they
But
do
can you
stash in
imagine
their
being a
houses.
fighter and hiding explosive devices in the room of your son? In a place where you rule?
I'm not that
This
man.
isn't the
I
place
don't
where you
know
can.
how they manage to do their shit. I'm not that man. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
I
But I
wouldn't
can
do
tell you,
that.
Israel's
For
had both.
instance,
Israel's had freedom fighters who fought against the British, and I can promise you that they had weapons in many places, including in synagogues, but never in the rooms of children. And I can tell you this for sure, because we found these weapon stashes, and they fought against the Israeli government as well.
so
And I
no
can tell you
tunnels
that
in New York
the
City. Is
some
that what
people
he's
won't
saying?
shoot, people would.
Since you said about synagogues, so no tunnels in New York City. Is that what he's saying?
Well, I don't know about that. I wasn't
I
when that
don't
made the
I
news.
don't know why you used that example, but okay. So you're talking
That's
about freedom fighters, and you wanna do okay,
I'm
whatever.
talking
Okay,
about
can
the
you
freedom
continue
fighters.
about the
The
explosive you
synagogue.
found in that person's house? So
Hmm?
you telling me a father would bring bombs into his house? Yeah.
Yeah, a father put, and I can tell you the exact name of this person. I can send it to you in Discord if you want to look up the person yourself. He was a Hamas member. and he
Mm-hmm.
put in his children's room. He put improvised explosive devices and hand grenades under
Mm-hmm.
the bed of his children. And I
Mm-hmm.
can ask you this: one day you'll have children, and I really hope that you answer me this. Would you put anything in the room like this? I hope
Do I
not.
look like a freedom fighter to you?
Not
I'm
freedom
not
fighter or
in,
anything.
I'm
I'm
not
not.
in his like shoes by
I'm
any
not saying
chance.
you shoot. I'm saying that there's a level of humanity that you need to show when you're a father, and this is not
Well,
you can
why not?
excuse.
Why not say he doesn't have like a weapon locker?
Well, he didn't. It was in his house. We
He
were
did it
aware.
because he's using their bed as this, like arsenal locker, ammunition box or whatever.
And I can tell you that in
Yeah.
his the neighboring house of this person, we found in his own yard also weapons, and all across
Yeah.
this, this neighborhood of
How else could
Shujaya.
he like hide his weapons?
So they didn't even do a good job of hiding them. My question is, why would you put them in the room with your
Because
children?
no one is supposed to invade their houses. Maybe that. I don't know.
Sure,
I don't
but
know.
if
To be
nobody's
honest
going
with
to
you.
invade your house, why not just, put it in a
I don't
locker
know. I don't know. I don't know that man you're talking
in
about. Anyways.
one central location?
Uh-huh.
Why would you put children in the room? My answer
Mhm.
to this is simple. That way you can blame somebody else. If something happens, you can blame someone else.
Why
You can
blame
blame
someone else if you're the? I don't get it. Like if you're like the man of the house and you're the man that is more likely to bring those in the house. Why? How could you like blame someone else?
Bro, I told this to my girlfriend, and I'm going to tell her the same thing. She asked me this. When you're in someone's house, how you feel about them? I say it depends a lot on the person. Because some people you feel sorry for, and some people you can't help but hate. Because you enter
Hmm.
somebody's house, and you find, if I enter somebody's house and I see a pistol under his bed, I say, and this is the exact thing I told her. If you go to somebody's house, you find a pistol under their bed,
Yeah,
it means they care
but
about their
that
family.
somebody that somebody is locked up in a open air prison, so he's either going to
What brings
Israel
them?
on an instance like the
I can
October
tell you
instance, or
what makes
or
you
he's
in
like,
prison. You can sit and leave like any other country. You just can't go to Israel or Egypt. You can take a ship and leave. You
yeah,
can
but
take
they can't
a
go to the West Bank. I know some people that went from Gaza to West Bank, West Bank to Gaza.
Yeah, I do. I do too. I was in Gaza. I can tell you the houses there are no prison.
From
They're
areas,
no,
from areas
they're
checkpoint or whatever you call it,
not
that
an open air
borderline
prison.
areas.
Something that is, you know, it's
What?
basically its own
It's
country.
not? Hmm.
No, it operated
It's
as its
not an
own country.
open.
And this isn't, you can agree or disagree with what they did. I assume you disagree, and I did too. But how is Gaza different than any other country or different than whatever
I tell you,
Somalia or ISIS or
they
any
can't
country?
have goods from the sea. They can't even fish from the sea as like total fishermen without
Send
those
goods to Israel.
boats.
I've seen boxes of goods in Israel that were delivered from Gaza.
Well,
Boxes and
those are not
large.
normal to find. I don't know about you, but those are not normal to find.
There's a lot
Anyways,
of these.
they are they can't transfer the goods from Gaza to the West Bank until Israeli nose is put in that. So I don't
Sure, but
know.
is it not? Is
Either
that is
they
that?
go from Egypt to Jordan, and then from Jordan
Let me ask you
to the
this.
West Bank.
It's not controversial to say that Gaza has smuggled weapons in various ways, including
Okay.
ambulances, including through sea and land and every other way, no?
Oh, ambulances. Now you're gonna. Okay. Okay.
I can try to
Move
send you
on.
the clip and I'll
Yeah,
remove
yeah,
that
yeah,
part.
yeah.
Through
Okay,
land
okay,
and
okay.
smuggled weapons. And so is it not reasonable to check that if they're not smuggling more weapons?
Hmm. Hmm. So you're telling me about Hamas providing their freedom fighters with okay,
Yeah.
arming them through
Freedom
like
fighters,
an
it doesn't
ambulance.
bother me. To the UK, they can be freedom fighters, and to me, they can be the enemy or terrorists. But either
Okay.
way,
Why? Oh,
we are
why
we each other, right?
why Ben Gvir wants to arm these illegal settlers in the West Bank? How about that? Same, same story. Bad guys,
Well,
bad
whatever
guys.
you want.
No,
Again,
no,
it
no,
doesn't
but
bother me.
no, no.
Saying that,
It is the same story. It is the same story. Literally, it's the same story. Bad
let me
guys.
finish. I'm gonna say this: is it not
Mm.
unreasonable for Israel to check if their Hamas is getting weapons through Israeli land? Is that
If it's
unreasonable?
not reasonable to Israel to go by the international law and stop the settlements in the West Bank, no.
In the same way that it's reasonable for Arabs to check that Israel is not getting weapons shipments through them, it's reasonable that Israel
Um,
checks that people who we consider terrorists, and you can consider them freedom fighters. Again, that's not relevant to this point. Are not getting
would you
weapons.
rather would you rather live in Israel or a settlement in the West Bank?
Well, First of all, both of these are Israel, and you can agree or not agree with it.
Okay, now this is coming funny. Oh, this is funny.
Well,
So
almost
you're telling me
everyone.
the UN is the enemy now? They are the enemy? The United Nations are the enemy now because they're calling Israel not Israel right now. Ooh,
I don't
spicy.
think anybody is the enemy from the UN. That's not relevant to the point. In the same way that you can say almost every Palestinian views what we call Israel as Palestinian land, and you can just check the flag of both Fatah and Hamas and every other movement of
Mm,
Palestinians and
mm,
confirm that, right?
mm. That's funny.
Do you
Mm.
consider, Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and Haifa and every other Israeli city to be Palestinian or no?
I wouldn't
The
care
right
about
to
Tel Aviv. I would care
Palestinian.
about Haifa because my grandmother used to live in Haifa. Her father was the chief of the fishermen, and he was kicked out of Haifa, and he was
Sure.
like a seeds
My grandfather was kicked
seller.
out of Damascus. Welcome to the Middle East. This is not.
What?
My grandfather got kicked out of Damascus. Welcome to the Middle East. This is how it is.
It's not my problem. I don't know your grandfather. I don't live in Damascus.
It's not
Dude,
your
where are you getting
grandmother.
with this point?
In the
This
same
point
way
is
that you
not.
got kicked
No, 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 no,
in the
no, no,
same
no,
way
no,
you
no,
got
no, 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 no,
down
no,
on
no.
wall in every other
No
place.
Palestinian, no Palestinian kicked your grandfather from Damascus, but an Israeli kicked my grandmother and her sister from Haifa. Doesn't make sense. Okay.
And that Arabs
So
kicked
no, no,
Jews
no,
out of
no, 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 no,
and they
no,
kicked
dude,
out of
dude.
going after
Her
wars.
father's store is still locked up to till this day. We can go to Haifa and look at that shop, and that shop is still locked up. No one is using that shop, just an empty room till this day. So I don't know why is that happening. Why they got kicked out if you're not gonna use the room? Use the room at least.
Would you
So
prefer we use the room? Is that the issue here?
yeah. If you're
You
gonna
might
kick
as
someone from his house, at least use the room that you kicked him from. It's no. I'm talking about his store. His store is in the Haifa by the Haifa Bay, in the old souk, but his house got demolished. So yeah, at
I
least
don't
use
mean
his
to be
store.
insulting, but
What,
this is
dude,
a
dude,
genuine question.
if
Would you
you
prefer that
if
we
you
use
went
it?
to Haifa, no, if you went to Haifa, you would go and find so much dead roads there. No fucking stores opened. Old gates closed. Nothing. Just dust and whip cups.
I've
So
been
I
to
don't know
Haifa.
where you're
It
going with
looks
your
like
point.
every other city I've been to. It just looks like more hills and the Baha'i temple. It really is not any different than any other city.
Hmm. Okay, maybe you're going to the wrong part of that city. I don't know. I don't know about you.
You been to Haifa?
Yup, multiple times.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. Don't you like
Would you?
believe in? Don't you believe in the permit that your government gives the Palestinian? Don't you believe in
No,
that permit?
nothing wrong with that. You're welcome to visit Haifa. I don't see any issue.
Okay.
There's no issue with this.
Yeah,
Why would
yeah.
I have a problem?
I was issued a permit from the Israeli government to visit
Yeah,
the Arab cities: Nasr,
yeah,
Yafa, Haifa, Akka,
wherever you want.
Ras al Naqura, to the borders of Lebanon. Yeah,
Wherever you want, bro. This doesn't bother me.
Netanya, Netanya, yeah, too. Netanya,
Okay,
Kfar
then give
Saba.
you
I've been
these
there.
Arab cities, like Netanya, where only Jews live now. You can.
Hmm.
I don't think it was
No, no,
ever an
but the
Arab
beach,
city.
the beach there, no, the beach there is lovely. So that's why I remember Netanya.
Again, there's no issue with Arabs going wherever they want in Israel. Obviously, just as long
Issued
as there's
permits
no
from the government.
security issues, then yeah, great.
Hmm.
That's the reason we had the checkpoints to begin with, because originally there were no checkpoints, and then the first Intifada, this had to
Mm.
happen.
Yeah, but the Intifada happened because they did the wall and started with the settlements. So I don't
No, no, no.
know.
The
I don't know where you're going for with it.
wall was built much after the first Intifada. That's not.
Oh, okay. You're talking about the first Intifada. Were you born there in the first Intifada?
No, neither were you.
Okay, so I'm not talking about this. Talk about the first. Talk about the second Intifada in 2000s because it's still
Well,
going on.
the wall was built in response to the Intifada. It was built directly, and this is the reason they built the wall. Whether it affected it or not is political,
Then
but it was
then the
because of
Intifada started. Then the
so it
Intifada
was
started.
a response
Wasn't that the
to
story?
wasn't the cause.
Wasn't that the story? They built the wall and then the Intifada did because of the peace treaty. There was no wall and there was no
No,
settlements in the
you
West
have
Bank.
you have the events mixed up, brother. This is the other way around. The wall was built directly, and this was the political reason that Arik Sharon built the wall because
Oh,
of suicide bombings. And you can say that it
oh.
was a good idea or a bad idea.
But in the peace
But,
treaty, there was no war, no wall, and no settlements. So why did Arafat provoke the Oslo?
well, okay, we can say that there was no, there was no settlements in 19 after the 1948 war, if you want. And okay, let me ask you a question: is the rest of Israel settlements?
The what?
Is Israel in not in the West Bank? Netanya, Tel Aviv, Ashdod.
Okay.
These places who were in the West Bank. These are Israeli and they're not settlements? Because most of the Palestinians don't agree with this.
Settlements are
And
in the West Bank, buddy.
exclusively?
Are you out of your mind?
Hmm?
Settlements are only in the West Bank. Whatever Israel is Israel, it's already done. Like I
Then
can't
okay.
go to Israel and kick them from their land. They've been like for like 70 years already. 70, 75 years.
Yeah, sure.
Would I rather kick someone who's like been there for like 70, 75 years? Like, no, I wouldn't. Why would I? But
Then how do
go
you
to the
feel
West
about
Bank.
most
Leave the
Palestinians,
West
including
leave
the
the West
political?
Bank for the
How do you feel
Mhm.
about most Palestinians, including the political movements, and that's made very clear by their political statements, the flags and the symbols, showing that all of Israel is considered Palestinian to them.
What about Great Israel?
Well, that's not a
Is that
very
in uh,
the idea of
uh,
Greater Israel being anything other than the current
no
borders
minister
is not
no
a
minister no minister
political
had
concept.
a conference with that on the podium, Great Israel? Lovely.
What do you mean?
When the minister of I don't know what, some some governmental minister had the Great Israel on his podium and he was giving a speech. That didn't happen. I can pull
Well, I
his
mean, this
name
is
right
very
now.
clear. Again, this is niche. This is not a very. This is a very rare opinion in Israel, and you can say that a minister
Mm,
has it. But they're extremists in the government
not
too.
by the government. Okay, I know that most of Israel doesn't care about the government right now. They think that they are a false government. Whatever Netanyahu is doing is not doing it for the Israeli people. I can agree with that, but come on, you're telling me that didn't happen or that did happen, but it's rare opinion in Israel.
I
So
don't
I
want to
can
say
say,
didn't,
so I
but
can
I know
say,
what
so I
you're
can
referring
say
to.
supporting Hamas is a rare opinion in the West Bank. I can say that also.
Well, Hamas is not a rare opinion in the West Bank, and that's proven by the elections that Abu Mazen refuses
Ah,
to hold in the West Bank.
the elections. You're talking about the elections now. Oh, why did they like gain power to the government? Then they lost the power to the government because they did a poor job. The people elected them. I'm not gonna tell you the people didn't elect them, but when they did a poor job, they were
Yeah,
the
which is not.
authorized. They took the
But
authority back from them. But then
the
they did
difference
that
is
coup
that the
in
large
Gaza.
parts of the West Bank do support Hamas, and that's not something you can say isn't true. There's large
No, no,
amounts
no,
of
no. Not getting the
cities
whole
that
picture. The whole picture is people supporting their people.
sure, yeah,
They
they
wouldn't
live
go
in
under Hamas
Al
authority, but they would
Fine.
support the Freedom Party, the Freedom Fighters. I would agree with you. No, no one would like Hamas to be an authority. No
A lot of
one in the West
Palestinians
Bank,
even
living in the
vote
West
for
Bank would like
like,
Hamas to be an authority. They wouldn't
they
want to
just
lose their houses.
agree.
They want to know. They don't want to lose their businesses. They want, dude. Half of the West Bank are doing businesses with Israel right now,
Yeah, a
right
lot
now, till this day. A
yeah,
lot of people,
most Arabs
and they
work
work in
directly
Israel, and they work in
with
Israel. Would they like Hamas to be in the authority? No, no, no. They won't. We do believe in Israel as a country, and that is passed away from like the last 20 years. What we don't
It depends
want
on the
are
person because
settlements in the West Bank.
a lot of
This is
people
the
who
whole
refer
story.
I see many people, including in the West Bank, who refuse to refer to Israel as a country. I've met people like this before in person. And
Okay,
you can,
don't their cousins, don't their relatives work in Israel though?
many do, and this is the part of
There
the
you
issue,
go. There you go. There you
it's a
go.
matter of
They do
reality,
accept they do accept Israel as a country for their own conditions, where you can like
Yeah, for
at least
personal
get a
gain.
confirmation of from them on Israel being a country or what.
Yeah, for sure. People will accept it for personal gain many times. But in the same manner, Israelis will, go to Dubai and then talk about, hating Arabs. This is not, a new phenomenon. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
hypocrisy is not new.
Yeah, but like most of the Arabs do hate the Jews because of what killings, what this, one that. They're not like because okay, you can't hate all the Arabs for Hamas.
No, for sure. And I don't hate
Yeah,
any
yeah,
Arabs
yeah.
in
But don't
Israel.
all the Jews have to serve in the IDF?
A,
Hands? Hands are
technically,
not
yes.
equal. Hands are not equal. Not all the Arabs can serve by Hamas, can be a freedom fighter in the West Bank, which no Hamas is there. So, not equal
Well, that's
hands.
not true. There's plenty of Hamas presence in the West Bank. They almost took over the West Bank. I
They
can
didn't
show you
succeed.
many,
They didn't
many
succeed.
cells.
But they didn't succeed.
Sure, but
But
there's still a lot of
but
presence.
still to this
You can
day,
show you-
every
go-
Israeli has to serve in the IDF. See, it's
I
not
tell you
equal,
what.
buddy.
I tell you what. You go to you live near Nablus, right?
Okay,
You go to Sebastia, you ask them what they support. You go to Tubas, you ask them what they support.
okay.
You go to these places around you, and these are places that are known
You
for
can
Hamas, for example.
you can go for Nabil and ask them what they support. You can go for Shukba and ask them what they support.
And
Where
you go
their
to
where their customers are Jewish, are
you can go
Jews.
to Kawala and ask them who they support and why they support them. This is not, a lot of these places like Baltan, they deal with Jews
Okay,
a lot. All
okay.
these many other places, I agree. This
But
is
it's not always the
much
same.
intertwined.
It's not always the same. Don't most of the don't most of Nablus citizens do work in Israel or have businesses doing in Israel?
Sure, but
Sell goods to
yeah,
Israel. They
what
distribute
there's
back and forth from Israel.
all of Yatta. I live in the south.
Yeah,
Yatta
yeah,
is
yeah.
near me,
Yep,
and
yep,
Dahalia is
Yatta.
near me,
Yep,
and these places all work in
Yatta,
Israel. So places,
Dura,
all good.
Yatta, and the last one there where they live in the mountains. What's it called? Uh, with the closest point to the Israeli borders there.
In which
I
part?
forgot that. Like the lowest village there. What's it called?
Near Yericho,
No, no, no.
Dahalia,
No, no, no. I couldn't. It's like another village there, south of Hebron, by the borders of
Dahalia, Yatta,
Beersheba.
Khalkhul,
Not Halhul, not Yatta.
Dahalia.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't remember. I've
It
seen
doesn't
them
matter.
like
It doesn't
work
matter.
in the factories, go
Yeah,
back and
sure.
forth,
Many
and you
Arabs
can
directly run.
no,
Umar,
and
for
you can
example.
see them and you can see them gaining Jewish friends, doing businesses with them for like more than 10 years, being their managers or working for them, their customers, people serving them. I know. I know lots of people that
Yeah,
have like
this is very
friends,
interesting here, and
like Israeli friends for like the past 10 years or the past 20 years. This shit happens. What doesn't
yeah,
happen, what doesn't happen is not all the Arabs are Hamas, but all
of
the
course.
Israelis serve in the IDF. So this is
Are you saying that
where you
this
get
is
like in a
to
sticky
be
situation
attacked or something?
between the conflict.
What difference does it
Huh?
make? What does it matter?
Um,
Like,
It
of
does
course it
matter.
doesn't.
It does matter.
Of course,
In
not
this
all
oh
conflict, it
Arabs
does
wait,
matter.
support of terrorism. Is what
guys,
you're saying.
guys. I'm gonna give it a time segment because it feels like go for maybe trying to get the word in. So like if
No,
you
no, we're
want
just having like
No problem.
a
No problem.
chill
We'll just
conversation. You can do whatever.
okay, just making sure because like hey, just let each other finish off what they're each other say. So I just
No,
want
no,
to say
no.
that.
No, we're just having the
Okay.
conversation back and forth.
Yeah, okay,
sure.
okay.
I wasn't aware that there was like a rule or something.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I know, it's fine.
But
So,
yeah,
Sifas, you don't have like any questions to ask for us? Anything to add up? Any comments?
So basically, I wanted to get like for both, like for you and originally I wanted to get you and O
Mhm.
uh perspective on how this war kind of developed because most people are unaware because people are kind of uninformed. So I guess we'll start with you, Hoffman. At the very start with O at the very beginning. So you can
Okay.
start with that one.
Let's have like a 2 minutes break. I'll be back.
Sure.
Hello?
Absolutely.
I'm back. I'm back. Thank you for the break. So Toss?
I'll get to work. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Mhm. Again with the
Okay.
question, please.
Okay. So in your perspective, how did this war devolve over time? Like, what is the history behind this controversial armed
In the
conflict?
last, let's say in the last 30 years.
Anywhere you want to start with, as far back as you can.
hmm Would it be like me saying this statement, or us both having from the year, starting from the year?
No, go ahead. Just
Uh,
Like going from one timeline to the other, like what happened in the
uh,
30s, then the
yeah,
40s, and the
yeah. We
50s,
we can
60s,
we can
70s.
start with the 30s, 40s, and what you know about that, and then you can go on, and then he could give a statement of how it evolved because maybe you
Uh-huh.
both have different views. So I'll just start with you.
go
Okay,
ahead
let's
if I.
start with the
But
90s, 30s. Okay. Let me work those mandatory Palestine. Let me work on those like titles, and let's talk about every title. So in the 1930s, Palestine was in the under the mandatory of the British Kingdom, and when they had the most priority works and sales and crafts sent to the Jews and not shared with the Arabs by the British, they had in 1936 they had a revolution against the British, and after that revolution ended up with the Arabs coming along with them supporting them little by little. In the 1940s, when they announced the country of Israel and they had their creation of the state of Israel, all the Arabs countries went into war with Israel right after that. And when like Britain pulled out of the scene in there, and when they had like all that, I don't know if you want to cover about the 50s. Hello?
You can,
Hello?
yeah, no, we can
for
hear you.
sure.
Can you
Yeah,
cover about the 50s?
of course.
Am I going
Go ahead.
on a correct timeline? First revolution was in 1936 against the British, and then that was followed by the creation of the State of Israel, the first war, and then it moved on. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Don't
Yeah.
worry.
Okay, so can you continue from the 50s?
All right.
Yeah, sure.
That's for you. Oh, yeah.
So, just to say the Israeli perspective, by the way, in the late 1800s, as part of the nationalist movement in Europe, then Jews also started forming their own national consciousness, and about the same time that it was starting to form in Turkey as well with the Ottomans. And so it was under Ottoman rule. By then, Jews started to move back to Israel and with national intentions. And at that point, we're mostly hiring Arabs as well for both security and for work. And then in a second wave of Jews who were more with socialist intentions, there was fighting over whether they should be hiring only Jews for Jewish labor or also hiring Arabs for this and agricultural work. And this eventually involved fighting with the Arab gangs, which were kind of more on the Bedouin raider scale, but this was not a national issue. At this point, a lot of Arabs were in support of Jewish nationalism in Israel and thought it would bring work. A lot of Arabs had started to move at this time. Also, in the previous century of the 1800s, there was a lot of movement here. It was basically unlivable because of raids, and it was a backwater without much agricultural opportunities. And then people started coming here, both Jews and Arabs. The Arab society was very split over who to side with. In the 1920s, there was a series of violent interactions between Jews and Arabs in cities, mostly in Jerusalem and Yaffo and places like this. Arabs, some of them supported the Jews, some of them didn't. At this point, more didn't. The Arab movements to boycott Jews and British were growing. There was a fighting which is called which is what Uthman mentioned, which was called the Great Revolt by Arabs, the Great Arab Revolt by Jews. The Arabs kind of lost out. World War II happened. Jews started with the Allies. Arabs were, some of them were with the Axis, some of them were neutral. When World War II ended, the British wanted to stay and were against Jewish nationalism at the time, and were in a very pointed end at the very end of their mandate here in the 1940s. Israel got independence, and what was supposed to be a joint Jewish and Arab states formed at the same time. The Arabs rejected the proposal after when the fighting was
Because it
already
wasn't fair.
done by then, which was the Israeli War of Independence, as we call it.
Because it wasn't fair, also.
What did you say?
Because it wasn't fair for the Arabs in that
Sure,
state.
yeah, I would say it wasn't fair. Jews.
And they weren't the biggest percentage of the people living on that land, also.
Yeah, that's not really true, but not the point.
Not really
I'll go
true?
back to that if you want. But
Okay,
the
go
Arabs,
on. I'm sorry.
Arabs were fighting Jews at that point already, and something that was kind of a local war. But Arabs were from other countries were already supporting them in the form of what was a volunteer army in modern day northern Israel, which was called the Arab Liberation Army by Kaukji. Then other Arabs and Arab nations started joining the war against Israel. Israel got its independence and held what it's called now it's called the 48 borders or 67 borders by some people. Jordan was holding the West Bank, and Egypt held Gaza.
The Gaza
Then there
Strip.
was a couple of other wars against Arab nations, and then the wars stopped being
So
against Arab nations,
you're
more
now in
against
the
more.
60s or you went to the 70s?
I just kind of skipped over the wars against Egypt and Jordan and
Mm,
Syria.
okay.
Eventually, the wars stopped being against armies and against guerrilla movements. Most of these were Palestinians who were in Jordan, and then in Lebanon, and then in the West Bank as well. There was
Mm,
already terrorist attacks coming from Egypt, from known called the Fedayeen in the 50s, and this is a movement that kept on spreading. And so, and eventually, when Israel was holding these territories, there was something called the Intifada, which was a large-scale, long-term, Arabs call it revolt, Israelis call it terror attacks, which
okay.
targeted both civilians and military infrastructure. These attacks came from cities and were usually done by civilians and not, or maybe sometimes affiliated with terror movements, but not organized groups. And
Okay.
so these were, long and very difficult conflicts, which had a lot of civilian casualties because all the people involved were in civilian areas. And so eventually what happened was that Israel decided that in the Gaza Strip, the settlements which were in the south should be evacuated. And it was a very controversial decision in Israel. And after
Okay.
this happened,
That's
Hamas
true.
took power in Gaza, and Israel and the PLO sometimes ended up being allied against Hamas, and sometimes PLO and Hamas against Israel, and kind of a balance of power there. And so Hamas ruled Gaza, and PLO sort of rules the West Bank, even though it's very fractured there. And then
It's
the
not.
war this year began after a series of engagements over the last couple of decades of Israel against Hamas in Gaza. And then this war is on a very different scale from this, and it's much more of a full-on war than limited operations. And
Yeah,
so,
but on the part of the Palestinian authorities not gaining full control of over the West Bank, it's because the IDF is moving back and forth every day, every night. So
sure,
that's
yeah,
why
but
it's
it
kind of
does influence
fractured.
it. But there's very much Hamas ruled areas, especially in, like
Mm,
near where I live in Tavon and
yeah,
Khalil.
but they
There's large
are
areas that are entirely ruled by the families like Ja'abli and Tamimi, and there's no real pull of the PLO there. Or
mm,
Khalkhul and Bet Uma, which are entirely ruled by Hamas.
yeah, because they have their own economy,
Yeah,
power. They're not. Yeah,
without
most of
getting
them are
too much
not.
into the economics, there was always business between Jews and Arabs, including in the very far past, where
No, no,
Jews would always
I'm talking
be.
about those families you're talking about.
No,
They're
Ja'ab and
so
Tamim.
massive on in economies like a Jabari. They have their own strong economy going around, and
Yeah,
they're not listening most of the time to the
yeah.
to the
No, I want
PLO
to
doing
finish.
whatever they're doing. But I think that
Let me
Jabari
finish
and the
this.
Jews living in Hebron are in peace, as in the Jabari family.
Yeah, Tamimis don't like us.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, the Ja'abalis, they kind of had like a big sulha nowadays. It was a whole weird event.
Yeah. They went all over and they didn't listen to the PLO and had their peace with the Jews. And they told them, no more
Yeah.
violence, no more this, no more that. Yeah, I
You know
totally
the
agree with that
Nashashibi
point.
family.
The what?
The Nashashibi family.
Nashashibi, yeah. Jerusalem and
Yeah.
Hebron.
Huh?
They're in Jerusalem and Hebron.
Yeah, and you know, in the show they were murdered by the Husseini family. Like these are the people that were in the middle, and they always ended up being outcasted by the Arabs.
Hmm.
And then obviously in Israel, you know, there was the murder of Rabin and all these other events too. And this is not, you know, exclusive to Arabs, but certainly it's very clear in Arabs that there's constantly a lean to the terrorist movements, whether this is, you know, the PLO when it was more of a terrorist organization, or
Hmm.
in the Marxist
Then it was
organization.
represented by the UN as the only representative authority of the Palestinian people. So
Yeah, but the UN is again, it's
they
an
lost their
organization.
rank as the terror organization when they started to be a legit authority in Palestine
Well,
with
you know,
Yasser
I
Arafat on
don't
his
think
last days and
I
then
don't.
with Mahmoud Abbas and his
Very,
ministers and prime ministers that came up. Yeah, they were
including
totally
the North
recognized
Korean organization
by
like
the
this.
international
No,
what?
and but I don't view the UN as the reputable organization. Certainly, if the
Ah,
Palestinian people support the PLO, and not all of them do,
hmm.
then it's not like the only holder of power there.
Interesting point of the UN.
You know, this is a country that puts, you know, Syria in the brink on the height of its civil war, and all these other, you know, non-representative governments, whether that was, you know, South
Hmm.
Africa with apartheid, or you know, every other dictatorship that doesn't represent its people, you know, North Korea and every other country like this. This is not, you know,
Hmm.
not a very trustworthy organization.
So all of those conflicts matter to Israel in one matter. In what frame does that affect the Israeli image in the Middle East?
What do you mean?
Like all those countries you mentioned right now, how do they affect the image of Israel in the Middle East, being the
Well,
only
you know,
democracy there
a
with
country like
settlements? I can't get over the idea of being a democracy and having settlements and colonization. So what is your take on
I'm
that?
I don't think having settlements makes you not a democracy. You can say it's a bad thing,
Hmm.
and I agree from your perspective
Oh,
that obviously it's bad for
bad things, not
Palestinians.
about
Yeah,
democracy. Oh,
it's obviously bad for
I never
Palestinians to have
knew that
settlements.
democracy is bad. I thought
Sure.
dictatorship is bad, not democracy. Oh, you changed my point of view on the word now. Damn. Okay. So now by 2000, after the second Intifada and all the things happening in the roads of the West Bank, the IDF getting checkpoints everywhere, doing Kalandia, doing Beit Il, doing this, doing
Yeah, sure.
that, closing cities like you just closed the Kalkilia, Jenin, doing in Jenin, doing in the
Well,
Nablus, doing this,
if a
doing
terror
that.
organization
So how did that
takes
affect
place within a
the
city,
whole
how do you?
the whole
Yeah,
relationship between the Israeli and Arabs living in the West Bank? How do you think that
well,
would affect the relationship between those two people
of course, it
since they
degraded
have
relations.
their own peace and their own terms?
Of course, it degraded the relations because there was more pressure. But if there is a
Hmm.
terrorist organization operating from within a city, there's no way to stop it without entering the city. And
Hmm.
that's an unfortunate reality of it. And that's the
Hmm.
whole idea of warfare nowadays by these guerrilla organizations or terror organizations
Hmm.
or freedom fighters or however you call them.
Hmm.
The idea is you live
So
within a city and you
so
either
uh,
enlist in the population.
so is Israel part of the NATO?
No,
Hmm.
I mean, I don't
Why
think it
don't
should be
Israel
either.
be a part of the NATO and get the NATO help to kill those terror organizations? Wouldn't that be the best help for the only democracy in the West Bank and in the Middle East? I mean,
Well, do you want my reason to not join NATO, or do you want
no. I'm just like saying a random idea
well, I don't
to
think you should
help
join NATO
people
for
to
economic
help
reasons.
the problem of having terror organizations in the West Bank.
I don't think NATO wants us in because they are invading Muslim countries, and having us in makes their image even worse for them.
Hmm.
Certainly, you can't operate in Libya with Israeli soldiers,
Hmm.
or in Iraq, or in any other place that NATO, you know, had its own whim to invade for no reason.
What do you think about the Jolan incidents?
So that
Do you think that the Jolan should one day belong back to Syria, or it's well done for them to dream about Julan, the
Well, they
Syrians?
can do
What
what
do
they
you think
want.
about Julan?
That, you know,
Because the same kind of happened with Sina, and then you left out Sina out of the image and made it your land when you want to, and the Egyptian land when they want to. I don't know. It's like a difficult situation between Sina and Israel. So what about Julan? Since you have already working cities, working
well, we hold the
systems
Golan.
there.
Yeah, we hold the Golan there. In the same
Hmm.
way that you might view, Haifa and every other city in Israel as maybe yours historically, but not yours now. Then Syrians can certainly
No,
view
but
the Golan.
what about the Julan? The Julan was part of Israel in what? But you're talking about like 400 years ago, 500 years ago. You're not talking about 200, 300 years ago. Let's say from 100 to 200. You're talking from 300 to 600 years ago. Isn't? Am I not right about Golan?
What do you mean?
Because Golan mostly is run by the Druze, the Muslim Jews.
Nowadays, sure. I mean, in the
Nowadays,
sense
and unlike 200 years ago,
of,
to be honest with you, there was like the uh, Jewish, because Syria had their part of the Jewish and they kicked them out, they kept them. I don't know the whole story about that. And in Nablus we have like Jews, Samari Jews,
yeah,
in
you had the
in
Samaritans,
Samira,
and they
yeah, in
decided to
Samira.
leave the
That's why
place
you
as well.
call that's why you call the West Bank Samira.
Yeah, for sure. That was
Hmm.
that's the same name. We named it after them
Hmm.
historically, and then the name kept.
So what about the
And the same
Julan? What do you think about Julan? Does it belong to
well,
Israel, or it's like
Sinai is
something
all in
like
its citizens.
Sina?
The
The what?
difference is that Sinai not only was Sinai still almost all Bedouins, and Israelis were only in a very, very small segment in the north that was, not something we
I'm
agreed
talking
to
about the
keep.
land. I'm not talking about the people, the terrain, or nothing. I'm talking about the land, the region, kilometers. I'm talking about kilometers that you're
I'm saying
adding
that
and then
anytime
and
that
then
people
taking
fall,
out of the image.
same way that Arabs have lived, in Israel in the past, then Jews have lived here in the past, and it's, if you can hold it, then it's yours in the Middle East. This is not a place where you can say, well, I used to be here, 100 years ago, then it's mine. This is a place where you have to hold it militarily. And whether it's a good thing or not, then that's just reality. And if you can hold something militarily in the
What
Middle East, you
what if
want
the
to.
families are still there? What if it's
Well,
still like
the families
the
live there,
families
and
are still alive?
the
Can you
Jewish
name me
families
like
are still there.
can name me like 5, 6 families of the Jews living in the Julan in the past like 200 years?
Yeah, and there's plenty of Druzim still in
Druze. You're
Majlis
not talking about Jews. You're
other places.
you're talking about Israeli citizens like the Sunnis and the Christians, Catholic, Orthodox, Greeks. I'm talking about Jews living in Julan.
Oh, okay. What about them?
Can you name me like 7, 6 families of them living for the past like 200 years?
Golan, no. Do you want me to name families that lived in, Bat or Jerusalem or Hebron? I can do that.
I'm
Golan
not
was an
talking
area
about.
that
I'm not talking about.
Golan didn't really have a Jewish the
I'm
Golan
not talking
had.
about Israel, Samira, Israel, Palestine, Israel, West Bank. I'm talking about Julan that you.
Okay. So historically, the Golan and Haran had Jews in them, and then they got kicked out and
Hmm.
had the agricultural settlements there, and
But it's
which didn't really
but
take, and
it's
so
like
people.
but it's like in the Israeli control right now. Why aren't they like living now in
Why is it there?
Julan, and
Why
not
is it
only
in
the
the
Druze?
where the Israelis live there? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, yeah. Can you name
You're
me
asking
like any families from like the past 70 years at least living in
well, if it was
Julan?
well, it wasn't Israeli held 70 years ago, so no. You can name people who live there now if you want, or people who lived there 40 years ago.
70 years ago wasn't there was no Israeli state? Hmm.
No, it was Syrian held. In the same way that, for
Ah,
example,
okay, okay, that's nice.
yeah, it's not a
So,
secret to
so,
anybody.
so is it Israel or Syria now?
Well, it's Israel now,
Or
isn't it?
what is the chemical reaction after this? Like, how does it become Israel? How does it not become Israel? How is it like Israeli? How is
Well,
it
we
Syrian?
annexed
How
it.
is it
In
Egyptian?
a
How is
legal
it
sense, we annexed
Israeli?
it and offered everybody their citizenship and have, been very clear about it being Israeli territory. So it's Israeli. You can disagree with it if you're Syria and claim it's yours. You can
When I
disagree with
went to
it if you're
Taparia, in the last like 5 years ago, in like 2018, maybe 2017,
okay,
we they gave us like a map, and Golan was part of that map.
right.
So if we
Okay.
if we add
I
more
agree with you
if
to
we
claim the
add more
Golan.
to that map, wouldn't it become slowly Greater Israel? So and then
Well,
Golan,
we captured it
Iraq,
in a
and
war
then
that we were initially defending.
Iraq, then Euphrates. So I don't know. Isn't this becoming Great Israel now? Because I
Well, yeah,
held that map. I was shown that map
you can show
as
the
a
map.
brochure
Everybody knows
when
that.
I went to Tabariya.
It's not a secret that Israel claims the Golan as part of Israel. That's not like
So
anything secret.
so how does that work? My question is, how does that work?
We
When you
we
add
fought a
like
war
land,
against the
then you subscribe that land, you take it off,
we
then you
did not
take it
fight
on.
against. Okay, do you want the historical event? We fought against Syria in a war. We won the
Hmm.
war. They
Hmm.
attacked us first. We beat them back. Land that
Hmm.
they had held by us now, and then we decided to annex it, and that's how it's part of Israel.
Why aren't there like how many like what is the percentage of Jews living there?
About 50? Not exactly sure. I can look it up if you want.
50%?
Most of the people are the Druze who live in the north parts, in Majd al-Shams and Bukata and
Yeah.
Masada.
Yep.
Yeah. A
Hmm.
lot of these have Israeli citizenship, which we offered them, and they didn't agree to take.
So is it historically like Jewish or not Jewish?
Well, yeah, there was in the same way that Israel is historically Jewish, the Golan is historically Jewish. There was historical Jewish presence there before Jews were exiled from there.
Hmm. Hmm.
And now, if you want to name families that lived in
What
other
about
places,
what about Jericho?
Jericho is a city that Jews were banned from living in by according to Judaism, so not there. But if you want, I can name you Jewish families, for example, from Hebron, or I
Okay.
can name you
So
Jewish families from
were they having
Hebrew.
like any control about Jericho?
Historically, yes. There was also historical control over places, in
No, no. I'm talking
in
nowadays. Nowadays, why do they have some parts controlled by like Ain Farah and Jidi? Why are they
I don't
like controlled by the Jews right now, by
yeah, I don't think any
Israelis?
place in Jericho proper held by Israel. At least not currently. Not historically, maybe.
Why are they controlled by Israel, by the Israeli state? This is my
What do you mean?
question. Ain Farah and Jidi, weren't that isn't that like West Bank? They're having now cities. It's not even like settlements or anything. It's like cities and sanctuaries, spas,
In the same way that Israel,
in the
let me
same
tell you,
way that Palestine doesn't do the same. Same way. This is the same way. This
well,
is not like
power
uh,
dynamics.
giving giving another Israeli example wouldn't help, and that on that point.
Eilat, Rashrash in Arabic, was never held by
Okay.
Jews, and yet
Okay.
Amman
And
was always held by Jews. This is not a matter of exact, centimeters. It's a matter of area, right?
Amman, Amman, then Eilat and Rashrash, then
What about
Aqaba,
Amman?
then 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 Sharm el Sheikh, then Ethiopia, then Riyadh. Where you going?
Well, we're
Where you
not
going?
trying
You're
to
telling me
define
that
it. Historically, places in, like, for example, the Negev in southern Israel were never Jewish held, and the
hmm,
places in southern Lebanon or in Jordan were Jewish held.
because they're
Even on the
super
centimeter
deserted,
border is not important.
and living by the Bedouin, because they are
No,
super deserted. Maybe that's
you're
why.
missing my point.
Hmm? Okay.
Saying that areas that were not historically in the past Jewish held are, and areas that are no longer Jewish held, and that's fine. The idea that Israel doesn't need to hug ancient borders, that's the region. There's no reason
Okay.
that, a border from thousands of years ago is the current Israeli border. It's the region that Jews are from, and therefore we live here. It's not
Oh,
a
they're
meter or a
not
meter.
claiming that to be a future goal. Is that
No,
what he's saying? Okay, but no one knows the future. I don't know the future. You don't know the future. We're talking about now which is in the present. In the present, they have control in Jericho. They have control in Golan. They have control in some parts of Lebanon.
what part of Lebanon does Israel control?
Hmm. No part of Lebanon is under Israeli control. Is that what he's saying?
Which part of Lebanon is under Israeli control?
Hmm. No Kiryat Shmone, and not
That's Lebanon.
the farms of what is it called? Mazar Shab'a? Farms of Shab'a,
Oh,
and
Al
not
Tov.
even. Oh,
If they want to complain about what they say is about 500 square meters that Israel's holding, they can feel free to complain about it. But don't you think that's whining?
hmm. I don't know. I'm not Lebanese. I'm not Phoenician. I'm not Syrian.
Sure.
I'm Palestinian.
Neither are they.
So I belong to this land, anyways. You say no, you say yes. I belong to this land. So it's not the same between me and them. It's not like I'm Phoenician. It's not like I'm Syrian and I kicked
They're
you out
not
of
Phoenician
Damascus.
either.
I'm
But wait,
Palestinian. I lived on this land. We have like history on this land. We do have history till this day on this land. So let's not go to Lebanese and let's gonna go to
what?
more Arab
We
countries
Lebanon.
like Syria or Iraq, kicking you from Baghdad. What I'm talking about is Jericho. What do you think about Jericho?
What do I think about
Can they
Jericho?
like what about the artifacts that they found and then were debunked by all the museums and their communities around the
Artifacts
world,
are part of
telling them
Jericho.
that those swords do not belong to that time
What?
era.
What are you talking
Era.
about?
I'm not talking about the. I'm talking about the artifacts that were found in a cave in Jericho and then turned out to be not from that era that they're claiming on. You can do your research. I'm not doing your research. Didn't you like hear about that? Isn't that in
Anything.
the news?
What? A sword? No.
Two swords, not one sword. Two swords and their handles, and they showed up not to be from that time era that they claim they are by all the
So what?
historians. I'm, what I'm talking about is Jericho, dude. Jericho.
What
What
about
do you have
Jericho?
in Jericho?
What do you mean?
What do you have in Jericho as a Jewish?
You're not aware of the ancient Jewish presence there? You can say you're not. It's
In Jericho,
very
what do
likely.
you own now in Jericho? You own a lot of spas. No one is living in Jericho. There was a casino built in Jericho for the Jews to come by. In Jericho, historically, what does the Jews own? Can you name me like something they own in Jericho?
What do you mean?
Name
Like
me
ancient
any
Jericho?
place, an ancient place in Jericho that they own till
Jericho
this
used
day.
to be entirely inhabited by Jews, and then it got banned from Jews religiously, and then Jews don't really live there anymore. You
So
want me to give
really,
you
so
examples of other times where Jews are legally allowed to live by their own religion, where Jews did own many things, like
why they
Hebron?
own? Okay. Why do they own the sanctuaries on in Jericho then? And Farah and Jidi, this, and that. That's all in Jericho, buddy. Isn't that
Well,
true? It is.
I don't know these places, so I'm not going to comment on this. Do you want me to name places in Hebron which used to be Jewish owned and then were stolen by Muslims after the Jews were massacred there?
Like the Ibrahimi massacre done by that man from what's it called? The what's that movement called? The anti the ADL ADH. What's it called, man? That member of that ended up being not mentally aware of the incidents that he did, the massacre that he did in the Abrahamic mosque. What's that group called? Anti Defamation League, ADL.
Uh, The JDL? What the fuck are you talking about, bro? The ADL is completely unrelated to this.
Yeah, no. Anti Defamation League.
No, bro, that's a
That guy
different
who
thing.
did the massacre. That guy who did the massacre turned out to be a member of that league in
The
America.
JDL and the EDL are two different things, bro.
I'm talking about ADL, not JDL, buddy. Anti Defamation League.
You should double check. That's
No,
not
no,
true.
no. Dude. I did the double check. I did the research, and I'm pretty aware that he who was a member of that league in Hebron. We're only mentioning this massacre. We're not talking into it in detail because I've done my research like 2 or 3 times. So you're talking about Hebron.
I don't mean to
What's
be
in
rude. I
Hebron?
really don't mean to be rude. Do you think the ADL and the JDL are the same thing because they're similar name?
I'm not talking about those, buddy. I'm talking
Then
about
what did you talk
I'm
about?
talking about the massacre that happened in the Abrahamic Mosque. We're not getting into those leagues, whatever they are.
You just mentioned them, bro.
I just mentioned the ADL because he was a member of the ADL. That's it. I don't need to
I
get in the history of
don't
the ADL and then the JDL and the whatever
not the JDL.
JBL. Oh,
These are two
JDL.
different things that do very different things. The JDL is a terrorist
I
organization
never
run by.
mentioned the JDL, buddy. I mentioned the ADL. Can we go past this and talk about the massacre because you called massacres in the Hebron? Let's focus on the massacre, please. Because I
Sure.
never mentioned the JDL.
In
Never
1949,
mentioned the JDL.
murdered by Arabs, by a mob of Arabs, and not one lone extremist. A mob of Arabs murdered Jews, not one
The
person. A
Haganah?
mob.
The Arab Haganah?
No, random
What were
Jews.
they called? What were they called, those mob? Nothing? Just
Just
angry Arabs killing Jews for fun?
yeah.
Hmm.
Look.
Not the
1949.
Haganah. They weren't
Haganah.
called the Haganah.
Not the Haganah.
Funny.
1929 Hebron. Look it up. I don't mean to
So
be.
what?
Do you know about this, or are you
So what?
playing?
You're talking about fights happening in the past, and you're telling me that they do massacres. But my question was, why do Israel still control parts of Jericho as sanctuaries and as spas in Jericho? So then we went to Hebron and the massacres, and I named you a massacre. Then you named me a massacre. We're going into, I don't know which circles those are, but those are not like pretty circles. Those are like full of massacres and killings, or
Sure.
and death of civilians. So now, Safaz, do you have any comment to say, or do you want us to change the subject?
Uh,
Maybe add your comment. I'm more
for me,
freely to do anything you want.
for sure. Now, if anything, maybe we should take either a break or like we should make closing remarks. Whatever's up to you guys.
What's up?
So,
Whatever longer O wants, I'm up to it.
I'm gonna go to sleep
okay.
soon. To be
Longer,
honest, it's getting
do
late
you
here.
want to make closing
Like,
remarks? Or do you want to keep going?
I don't
yeah,
know.
sure.
Closing
Does
remarks?
he want to talk about something? Let him let him start speaking.
Yeah, like just 5 minutes for each. Like what you guys think about like the current state of being
Oh,
and what your role. I actually one question I really wanted to ask you guys. What is it like where you live? Because no, most people don't know. So like you can start. You can start long, then you can, and then Offman can start right after because I gave Offman the turn the last time around. So what is it like living in Israel?
Well, I don't think it's really that different from any other country. I mean, there's a lot of differences between Israel and other Western countries, and differences between Israel and its neighbors. But I think it's it's pretty regular. I don't think it's very different. I think we get really desensitized to the violence here, especially to rockets and things of that nature. Like there was a time where I was just getting a haircut and there was a rocket attack. I just was in the middle of the haircut, went back. I didn't even think twice about this. And I tell about it to friends who live abroad, and they were freaking out. Like you just didn't care, and it was like, no, you leave, you go back. So I think you get used to things like this very quickly. I'm not sure how it is in other places that are under war, but just part of life.
And you, Offman, what do you think? What is it
yeah,
like
I
living
would
where you are?
I would share the same point of view. We got used to gas bombs, tear gases, rubber bullets, real bullets, live bullets. Yeah, we got used to that, throwing rocks, throwing molotovs. This whole conflict, this whole combat zone, moving combat zone, let's say. Yeah, we're more than used to this whole thing. I totally agree with him.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to keep going, or do you want to make closing remarks
You were breaking.
longer?
I don't really have much to say. I think that not sure how productive this was, but it was interesting to talk to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Always happy to talk to other people, hear other opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. For sure. Do you want to ask about something in particular, Safaz? I'm more than ready to answer anything.
No, bro. I mean, you can
Okay.
keep in touch. You can call again if you want, but I don't really have any questions. You can feel free to ask
Okay.
anything you want as well. I mean,
Oh.
assume it's not every day you get to talk to soldiers and face to face.
Yeah. What do you feel like there will be ever a solution for this conflict? And if so, what would it?
Honestly,
I don't want you to answer.
I'm not optimistic about a solution. I think it's gonna end bad. I think it's gonna end badly. But I know you never lose hope. I hope it
Mm-hmm.
ends well. I hope people don't have to suffer. I hope both Jews and Arabs can live normal lives and not have to keep having to suffer from the conflict, and people on all sides are suffering from it. What I think is should happen, and ideally, is just uh, the Arab cities in Palestine or Israel or the West Bank or everywhere should be their own country in relation to Jordan, which would organize some of the things and make sure that they're defended on one hand, but not have their own military on the other. And Israel would probably hold the countryside, otherwise we wouldn't be able to guarantee safety. And I don't think there's another alternative that could ever end it. And I'm not sure how good even the thing that I said would work. But that's just my personal thoughts on it. I'm not optimistic about it ending well.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Uthman? Do you believe there's
I
a
would think
solution, or
I would
and what
think in
should?
the I would think in the next 30 years, if the newer generations come along and we can achieve peace, we can achieve everything. We can achieve everything without a condition of someone not having an army, or that, because peace will be in presence to those days in the future. But I think if we had our own airport, our own borders with Jordan, without the Israeli conflicting into that, if we had our own seaports in Gaza, after Gaza is rebuilt after this, because I'm more optimistic on the days coming, because in the next like 20 to 30 years, the newer generations will realize that peace will be achieved no matter what. And if we don't go after the people who lead us into like combat all the time, like Hamas, like Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, anyone who is in power, like Sinwar, for instance, anyone who wants to conflict to be the answer, we shouldn't believe in, we shouldn't follow in, we should follow into the peace path without having to invade another country's own business, without telling a country how to live, a country how to rule, a country how to do this, how to do that. Yeah, we would achieve peace, but that won't happen unless we wait for another like 20 years with newer generations looking only for peace. And thank you.
Yeah. Well, I have no more questions. Thank you guys for so much for everything. Unless you guys have any remarks you want to say, you know, I have no more questions. So thank you guys
Mhm.
so much.
It was nice talking
Thank you.
to Longer O, to be honest with you.
No, that's all. Good night,
Mm-mm.
and stay safe.
It was nice. It was nice.
I'll let you know if something's going to change here. Make sure you stay safe, bro. That's
hmm
it.
hmm Take care, brother.
You too.
Okay.